All right, so we're back with our season 2 of Nuggets on the Go, and finally we're back. And we just want to thank all our listeners who have downloaded our podcast and tuned to our podcast on Nuggets on the Go season 1. We took a break. That was like, I don't know how many months. How many months did we take? 6 months. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's Daniel, our sound engineer at PLB. So very excited to be back, and thank you for all the support for season 1. This is brand new season 2 right now, and we are in the year 2021, and we're going to bring you through the series on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as YouTube on our PropertyLimBrothers channel also. So thank you once again, and wishing everybody to have a great year ahead in 2021. Today, we're going to start off the season by talking about one of the very recent interviews that we had with one of our clients who we have known for the past 13 years, and that's Daniel and Sherry. So we just launched this chit chat session about 2 days back on our Instagram, YouTube channel. And of course, if you have missed that, you can head on to our YouTube channel to have a look at that 20 minutes interview we have, and of course the tour on the new landed property. So if you have seen that chit chat session, so Daniel, a quick recap for those who have not seen that episode. Daniel has been our client for the past 13 years. So we have been in the real estate industry for 14 years. This is the 15th year that we are in the real estate industry, myself and Adrian. And of course, we started PropertyLimBrothers in the year 2017. So Daniel was actually one of our very first clients in the first 2 years of our real estate career. We know him back then. He was just married as a young couple, himself and Sherry, and they were a referred client from one of our previous customer. So they approached us because they need help and they need a representation for them to buy and hunt for their first HDB property. So we actually helped them to purchase successfully a property in Punggol. At that time, it was a 5-room flat. And back then, I still remember when they bought the place 13 years back, they were about 28 years old. This time, they are, at this current year, they are turning 41. So that was 13 years ago, first property. But the interesting thing, why we want to interview them is that from that very first property, they have stayed in that first resale HDB flat for 5 years. And at the 5 years mark, we helped them to sell. And subsequently, we helped them to purchase 2 private properties. And that is actually the beginning of their property journey. And this is something that is at the heart of a lot of families, because sometimes when you have settled down on your first property, you have fulfilled the MOP period for the first HDB property, whether it's a BTO or is it a resale, you will be wondering, hey, should I make that move? Like a lot of my friends, they're upgrading to private property. And what are the setbacks? What are the pros and cons? And usually, this is a major decision. But of course, we have also seen a lot of families, because everybody is busy with their professional work. And sometimes they put off this really very important planning phase. And they put off this months after months. And sooner or later, even though they have fulfilled their 5 years MOP period, by the time they really sit down and think through their plan, is perhaps they have already lived in the HDB property for 8 to 9 years already. So there are some opportunity costs involved if you didn't take the time to really sit down and plan your journey. I just did an interview with Singtel Gomo. That was last week. And during that 45 minutes interview, I also spoke about this concept whereby actually in Singapore, we have a very short time span in terms of our property purchase and exit journey. Now, the key reason is because by the time most of the typical Singaporeans, once you graduate from, let's say, tertiary education, and after army, and you head on to university, settle down, by the time you start off your first career, you are perhaps between the age of 23 to 26. And then perhaps when you settle down, want to get married, wait for a BTO or buy a resale flat, that will perhaps be the time that you're already close to 30 years old. So that is your very first property. You need to fulfill that 5 years MOP period. And the moment that you can sell a first property, perhaps you're already between 35 to 38 years old. If you look forward, most people like to make their last move at age 50 to 52. Now, the key rationale is because most Singaporeans utilize their CPF funds for their properties in Singapore. And there is a restriction once you turn 55. In fact, you have to make your last purchase by 54. If not, there's going to be a restriction on the amount of ordinary funds account that you can use from a CPF to put into your property. So by age 55, you have a new account that has been unlocked in your CPF account, which is your retirement account. In short, we call it the RA account. If you don't do your last purchase by age 54, technically speaking, you will see a drop in the amount of CPF funds that you can use for your last purchase. And usually then people like to make their last planning. And of course, by age 50 plus, perhaps you want to slow down a little bit. You want to perhaps enjoy your retirement years, and you might not want to take up so much debt and leverage on your property. And that's the key reason why, if you calculate from age 30 from your first purchase all the way to age 52 or 54 for your last purchase, there's actually a very short 20 to 24 years. So in between, perhaps you can make about 4 rounds of purchase and exit, provided you plan in advance. So coming back to Daniel's and Sherry's case, they then sold off. We didn't help them to sell their first HDB property at age 33. So they have fulfilled their 5 years MOP. So they were very determined because they wanted to exit from the HDB property because by age 33, both of them have higher earning power in terms of their career. So they, of course, understand and they internally have planned as a couple that they want to then purchase a private property for stay, plus invest in another private property for rental investment. So coming to this part, they are using this strategy, of course, with 2 separate names for each property. And this is very common in Singapore ever since the introduction of the different rounds of cooling measures. And of course, in order to own 2 properties without having to pay for additional buyer's stamp duty, that is a very common route that couples will do, provided that both couples are working and both have a decent salary to support the TDSR, total debt servicing ratio, in terms of loan requirements. So of course, pardon me for the airplanes, because our office is located in the northeast area. So this is very close to, of course, what is that? Airbase. Oh, Paya Lebar Airbase. Yes. Yeah, which will be shifted in 10 years time. So by year 2030. Yeah. So, of course, back to this topic. Yeah, so Daniel and Sherry, they make a very decisive move. And of course, we help them to plan. And after a detailed calculation, we have then planned for one of them to purchase a larger property because their family needs are growing, they have kids. And so we help them to purchase a penthouse. And of course, the other property that we help them to invest is a very rental grade property. So what do we mean by rental grade property? Rental grade property means that if the main purpose is to hold the property for long term, then we want to make sure that rentability in terms of 2 functions is being fulfilled. The first function is that the rental speed is not slow, meaning that the rentability take-up rate is fast. And that will mean that when you want to switch tenants, let's say a tenant exit after 2 years, what is the time frame that you will need to wait and market the rental property in order to get in a new tenant? So sometimes if you purchase properties that are not rental grade, you have long periods of gestation to wait for the next tenant to come in. That is considered a rental loss, because if you have 3 months of blank periods without tenancy, you're losing 3 months of potential rental income. And you yourself, not living there, having bought that rental property, you would then have to act as a tenant to pay for the monthly installment, because by right, you should be receiving cash flow from your rental property to sustain part of an installment to the bank, or the full installment per se, depending on what kind of property price quantum that you get. So for Daniel, we have shortlisted a property for them that is very close to the MRT station, which is one of the key factors. Plus, it is also in a hot zone with a lot of existing tenants pool. So rentability has always been great for them. In fact, the rental yield is great for this particular property. They are still holding that property right now. So that happened when they were age 33 and 34. They bought a penthouse, and then at age 34, they bought a rental property through us. So fast forward to last year, in year 2020, because their family needs are growing again. And at the same time, things have changed because the key investment principle on why, of course, families or investors love to invest in property. Of course, there are a few varying key factors on why property is always a very good physical asset for you to store your value. But the key principle is that properties are assets with a good store of value, provided, of course, there has to be several considerations, like what is the balance lease for this particular property? Are we talking about a freehold property, or are we talking about a 99 years leasehold property with, let's say, a balance lease of 50 years or maybe 40 over years? So that's a different story. But properties in general, they are a great store of value. Now, the key reason is, of course, because of increasing construction costs, because of the varying factors that we are in Singapore, land scarce, and we have a whole topic in our YouTube channel talking about why Singapore is different. And property is, of course, the main kind of needs in terms of Singapore being a very high ownership rate kind of country compared to other countries, because in a lot of different countries, they have perhaps a higher internal rental rate where most of the tenants are actually the citizens themselves. But Singapore is different because our ownership rate is so high, and most Singaporeans love properties. I mean, from young, we are conditioned with a concept of owning our own property, having our own nest. So we are quite different in Singapore. And coming back to the factor that properties in general, they are a great store of value. And with inflation, increasing construction costs, varying factors, plus the way that we are in right now with so many cooling measures being plugged into the existing price index, Singapore is of course on a very gradual trend in terms of our property price. So things have changed for them because firstly, they now will want to perhaps with the increase in their price of the penthouse from the day that they bought at age 34 all the way to now at age 40, that has already been a price appreciation for their current penthouse. And so they want to exit from it, park that capital, initial capital with the capital gain plus the amount that they're paid down in mortgage and pump it into a freehold landed property. So we talk about that in that entire episode. And that entire episode is talking about what is their mindset as a seller. Why do they decided to go on this journey with us from HDB to condo to landed? And of course, they're still holding on to their investment condo property, which is so-called continue to giving them very good rental returns. And now, of course, they are holding onto their new landed property for their own family needs. And at the same time, it's a freehold property. So sometimes store of value have varying performance as years goes by because different properties have different performance in terms of their price appreciation factor. Is it plateauing? Is it increasing? And sometimes it's a matter of about putting your capital in a different property after several amount of years, because perhaps that current property that you are holding right now, in terms of the performance versus another property, it has so-called not perform as well because perhaps it has reached its level that is at a plateauing stage. So sometimes it's about transferring your wealth, your capital, so that you transfer it to an asset with a better store of value or with a better chance of appreciation of value. So that is, of course, the key fundamental reason why sometimes families or investors, they switch property. So I would strongly encourage you to have a look at that particular chit chat session. And of course, by having a look at that, you will then understand a little bit more about what we are talking today. So we hope to bring you more episodes on Nuggets on the Go Season 2. And meantime, we hope that you take care. And that's the end of today's session. It's great to be back, and we will see you very soon. So Meantime, take care. I'm Melvin Lim, PropertyLimBrothers. Stay tuned, of course, with our home tours. At all times, we launch home tours every week as well. And we hope to see you again. Take care. We hope to bring you more episodes on Nuggets on the Go season 2.
Wait.
Testing. Okay, I will definitely a pop filter.
Alright.
You know.